Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, patriots all over our country that is under God, welcome to tonight's Red America First Town Hall, the nation's most engaging platform where we, the people, run the show. Red for the Blood of Christ, America First policies and candidates. And I'm your host, Ashley Wise. Welcome to Town Hall by Red America First, where the spirit of our nation's founders meets the challenges of tomorrow. For 3 years, we stood as a beacon of unity and strength, draped in the symbolic red of our conviction, dedicated to America First policies and the Christian values that our nation was founded on. Here we gather not just to discuss, but to act, empowering our community through education, engagement, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Town Hall is igniting the conversations that matter. We're at the forefront of the movement to ensure a free, prosperous, and vibrant future for all Americans.
And I'm your co-host, Valerie Weiss. Tonight, we're thrilled to have Jay Beeber. He is Executive Director of Policy at the National Motorists Association, NMA, a driver advocacy group founded in 1982 to protect motorists' rights. He focuses on combating overregulation, such as low speed limits, automated ticketing, and anti-car policies, while promoting evidence-based traffic safety solutions. But first, we have exciting announcements to make. We will not be having Pastor's Point on Monday, May 26, 2025, as we observe Memorial Day to honor those who have served our country. Pastor's Point's goal is to share the gospel of Jesus and grow in the knowledge of the Word of God and encourage all to adhere to biblical principles.
Here on hashtag Town Hall, we have several future episodes booked. Next Thursday, May 29th, we have Dave Presto, and he will share his unheard American story, personal child trafficking story. And June 5th, we're going to have Tara Corset, founder and CEO of Flame. It's a natural decon. Her company is revolutionizing personal care with a holistic approach. Let's see, we got more updates here. For those that are joining the live stream, we're looking to grow our live panel. Panel members engage directly with guest speakers and participate in the intel round. Sign up at redamericafirst.com, add your state. Let's start with prayer tonight. We're going to call on Pastor Wendy Stockhausen, host of Pastor's Point, to lead us into prayer tonight. Thank you so much in advance, Pastor Wendy. Thank you.
Thank you. If you bow your heads. Father, we just come before you tonight with praise and thanksgiving, Lord. We thank you, Father God, that we live in a country, Father God, where we still have freedoms, Lord, and where we are free to worship you, Father. Lord, we pray, Father God, that you would guide our conversation tonight, Father. We pray that, Lord, as we are about your business, as we are about your business and the business of this country, Father, as it's you first and family and our country, Lord. I mean, so we just lift it up to you, Father. We lift this conversation up to you, Father God, and may we be guided by your Holy Spirit, Lord, as we tackle these issues, Father God, some of these things that are happening, and as we converse tonight, Lord, may we learn things tonight, Father. May we be open and just learn some new things tonight, Father God, and may we take action on those things that we hear and learn tonight. And may we be able to do it in your name. May we give 100% to you, Father. We give you praise and glory, Father. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, Pastor Wendy. Now, we're going to call on Valerie Wise, co-founder of Red America First, to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you in advance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that, Valerie. Now we're going to call on Amber Stockhausen, South Carolina, to do the national anthem. Thank you in advance, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting here and there, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow, what an amazing job. Good job. That's from South Carolina. Amber, thank you for that.
Very good job. Very good job.
So let's go ahead and bring up, oh gosh, Mr. Jay Beeber. I think you're here with us now. We're so honored to have you on tonight. What a great way to start the show with you tonight. Thank you for coming on tonight, Town Hall. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get into the interview, we just want to know a little bit, like, where are you from, where you grew up? Tell us about your story and how you got to this place. Thank you so much for coming on. Hashtag Town Hall. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's a long story. So I grew up in New Jersey. That's where I was born, and eventually made my way out to California, where I got involved in the red light camera program out there, trying to stop this really unfair ticketing program that the city had been running for over a decade. A lot of people didn't think that it was possible to get rid of this program, and took me about a year and a half, and we got it canceled. And then it just kind of took off from there. And I was running an organization called Safer Streets LA that was just basically doing what I'm doing now for the National Motorists Association, which is fighting for free movement and for your ability to use your personal automobile the way you see fit, rather than the way the government wants to force you to use your vehicle or not use your vehicle, as the case may be. And then recently, about 2.5 years ago, after having worked kind of tangentially with the National Motorists Association, they asked me to come on board, first as just a policy person, and then now as the executive director for policy for the organization. So that's the short version.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. It's really exciting to have you.
Exciting to be here.
Yeah. So your recent op-ed in the Wall Street Journal on May 10th, 2025, titled "The Case Against Speed Traps," really sparked a national conversation. Can you share with us what inspired you to write that piece, and how has the public response influenced your ongoing work with the NMA?
Well, you know, we've been talking about speed traps for a long time. The National Motorists Association got its start in the 80s to fight the 55-mile-an-hour national speed limit. I don't know how many of you remember this, but in the 70s, the Nixon administration signed into law a national speed limit that said no roadway in America could have a speed limit higher than 55 miles an hour, which is basically crazy, especially in the Western states where there are extremely long distances, and it takes, and you got to go, you know, when the roadways were built, the interstate highway system, which was built starting in the 50s, was built on the premise of being able to get you from point A to point B much faster than we had previously. And it was built on the design of the Autobahn in Germany, where people can go 120, faster than that on that roadway. And so it's designed for fast speeds. And then they slapped a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit on it, and they were, passing out massive tickets. The federal government said, they were not going to fund any federal highway projects unless they set the speed limit at 55 miles an hour and ticketed a certain number of people. And it was really a disaster. And that's sort of how the organization got started. So we've been fighting for rational speed limits for a really long time. And, you know, our definition of a speed trap, and there's a bunch of different definitions, but sort of the generalized definition is that the government builds a roadway to encourage you to feel comfortable driving a certain speed on the roadway. So, you know, whether that's an interstate highway, or whether it's just your local street or what they call an arterial street. There's a whole bunch of different types of roadways out there. And every type of roadway, based on how it's built and how it's designed, makes you feel comfortable. Nobody feels comfortable on your little neighborhood street, or at least they shouldn't feel comfortable driving, you know, 55 miles an hour on your little neighborhood street. It's not built for that, and it doesn't give you the sense that that's safe and a reasonable speed. But on a, you know, a 2-lane road with, you know, large straight road with you know, no other cars around you, and you know, you don't have that sense of speed, then, you know, 55, 45, 50 miles an hour feels very comfortable. And then what the government does is it slaps a 35 mile an hour speed limit on that roadway and then tickets you for doing exactly what the roadway is built to do and encourage you to do. So that's a speed trap. Now there's other versions of that where, you know, you can have a roadway which is built a certain way and it's, you know, say 55 miles and you get into the small little town in rural America, and then the speed limit immediately drops to 25 miles an hour and there's a cop sitting there to ticket you. That's a more overt version of a speed trap, but they're all basically the same thing, is for ticketing you for doing what they built the road to do. And so it is setting people up for failure. So that's our argument. Roadways should be built for the context in which you want the roadway's use for, and then you should set a speed limit on that's reasonable based on how you built the road, and not ticket people for doing what you built the road to do.
Mhm, mhm.
So Jay,
Yeah.
I gotta ask you, my question's two-parter. One, a lot of us feel like our privacy is at risk when we go
Mhm.
through lights now, and
Right.
and
And
you know,
everywhere.
right, and you know, in some cases we feel it's illegal. So my first question is, you know, for those that believe in freedom and you know, not having the government snooping on us driving through a light, uh is there any legal battles that are still going on with that?
Well, there are legal battles going on with that. I mean, we're obviously very concerned about the privacy issues with your car in general. I mean, you get into your car, especially a modern car, and you've lost your privacy almost immediately just by simply getting into your car. I don't know how much people know this, but your car, you know, any modern car, 5-ish, maybe even 10-ish years old, is collecting a huge amount of data on you. Used to be just this little black box for, you know, some of the older cars, and I say older, 10 years old or 15 years old. Everything that you did in that car, you know, in terms of your braking, your speed, all that kind of stuff, is collected by this black box, and it could theoretically be interrogated. But now it's even worse, which is the car manufacturers have built into all these systems. You know, you have this eyesight system, you have the OnStar, you have, you know, Subaru has their version of it. And so when you get into your car, it's collecting a huge amount of data on everything you do, from where you're going to how hard you brake, to how fast you accelerate, to what time of day you're traveling on certain roads. There's a huge amount of data. And then they take this data and they sell it to data brokers, and the data brokers chop up that data and they sell it to interested parties. So, for example, your insurance company, I'm sure, wants to know as much as they can about you in terms of how you drive your car, when you drive your car. You know, driving your car later at night, they consider that more of a risk, so they're going to charge you more in your insurance and all this kind of stuff. And so we're fighting right now, especially at the federal level, for some greater protections for drivers, that you would have to opt in to them collecting all this data, rather than, you know, you having to opt out. And the opt-out process is usually pretty Byzantine, and it's really hard to do, but because they don't want you to opt out of it. And a lot of stuff you can't opt out. And so, you know, we want to flip the narrative on that and say, if you want to collect all this data, which is your personal data, that when you get in the car, you connect your phone, all of that data is downloaded into the system. You go into a rental vehicle, all of that information is downloaded into their system. they can take it out. The next person can oftentimes get to it. There's a lot of privacy issues, speaking about privacy. And then when you get into the automated camera systems, a lot of people don't realize this, that those systems, especially like the red light cameras and speed cameras, they're collecting data 24/7. Those cameras are rolling all the time. And they can go back and look at that. And unless there's very stringent rules on, how long they can keep that, and usually they can keep it for months, because when, let's say, you trigger the system to issue a ticket, all they're doing is taking a little piece out of that long data set that they have and saying, okay, here's the 30 seconds or the minute or whatever that we want to ticket you for, but they're collecting all this other data the entire time. And a lot of people don't realize that. And in states, especially with those that care more about your privacy, this conversation is just happening where I am in Arizona, where they were shocked to find out that these systems, they say, oh, we're just capturing a picture or a short video, but they're not. They're capturing data continuously. And so we have a lot of concerns about the privacy of it, but understand that, at least in theory, if you're out in public, the privacy laws don't protect you that much. You don't have an expectation of privacy being out in public. But when you can be tracked, and then they can find out, well, you're here this day and you're here that day, and then they can create a profile on you and know exactly what kind of life you lead. They don't like the fact that you're going to a gun range or that you're going to a church or whatever it is that they don't like. On the left side, maybe there's some people that don't like you going to certain, medical clinics or whatever that they deem, improper. Just whatever it is that they don't like what you're doing, they can collect information on you and track you and know what you're doing. And that's not what we want the government to do, regardless of how you feel about anybody's individual activities.
So,
Right.
Just to be clear, you are fighting against this type of activity, right?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, and this does not cut just on one side of the political aisle. You would think that it might, but there's a lot of, Republican folks that are putting forth these bills that are for more surveillance, and they're more collecting your data. I mean, those that are supportive of the police, and we're supportive of the police. They want to use these license plate readers to be able to, collect data on the license plates and maybe help you out if your car gets stolen or whatever. There's some good uses for this stuff, but you have to be very, very careful, because we don't want to give up all our privacy just in the name of safety or protecting us from the bad guys out there, because, the government is often the bad guy.
We could be a police state overnight with that. But anyway, let's go to the next question. At an annual NMA conference in Milwaukee on April 15th this year, you outlined a new initiative to combat the misuse of red light cameras. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on the key findings from that initiative and how you envision it changing traffic enforcement practices across all of our country? Because, I'm going to tell you, I fight them all the time, because they're really against our privacy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, there is that big privacy question, but there's also the entrapment question. And this is a thing that most people don't realize, is that the number of tickets that you can issue, say, through red light cameras is highly dependent on how you set up the engineering of that intersection. So you can set people up for failure. You have to have a yellow light time that's not only a certain minimum, but because people are imperfect in their decision making, you have to have a little bit more of a grace period or of a longer yellow light to take into account the variation in people's driving habits and their perception of their reaction time and all of these things. So there's no perfect yellow light time. And so you can set a program up to ticket a lot of people, or you can set up a program just to go after the outliers, the people that are really the dangerous drivers out there, but you can't generate a profit doing that. So they always go after the flaws in the system where they're setting the yellow light time either below or really close to the absolute minimum. And so you can still ticket a whole bunch of people just because, people are imperfect and they make mistakes, and you can violate by a fraction of a second. Put that in perspective, the blink of an eye is 0.4 of a second. So, a lot of these violations occur within that blink of an eye. That's oftentimes 90% of the tickets are issued for a blink of an eye violation you can't even see with the naked eye. So this is why we're fighting against these programs, because they're revenue generators. They're not there for safety.
Right. I agree
Thank you
with you
so much.
100%. Well, our next question, you were also at recently at an NMA rally in Austin, Texas on May 5th, 2025, which drew over 300 attendees demanding transparency in traffic fine allocation. As a leader in this movement, what was the most surprising or heartening moment for you during that event, and how do you see it shaping future advocacy efforts?
Well, we tried to rally the troops everywhere around the country. We have this grassroots army out there, and so every place is different. I mean, Texas was just there were two bills that we were working on to try to stop. One would have allowed them to set speed limits arbitrarily, like we were talking about before, which was they could do it without what they call a speed survey to determine what the actual reasonable speed of that roadway is. They could just set it at 20 miles an hour and ticket anybody going over that speed. That's part of a larger movement, and we can maybe jump into that in a minute. But just to finish up on Texas, and then there was another bill. This other bill would have required that you pull over into another lane if there was like something on the shoulder, like a pedestrian or a bicyclist or whatever, and change lanes. Understand that changing lanes is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do on the road. That's where a lot of accidents happen. So unless there's a reason for somebody to have to change lanes, you don't want to force people to change lanes. Leave a lane open, move away from that lane, block traffic, slow everybody down, maybe get rear-ended, maybe sideswipe somebody in the process, frustrate other drivers. These laws, they sound good on paper. It's like, hey, well, we want people to be courteous and move away from people that are, having a problem on the side of the road, but you can cause other problems. These things don't happen in a vacuum. So, those are the things that we fight every day. There's a movement right now in the country, most people don't know about this, to take away your right to turn right on red. They don't like the fact you can turn right on red. And so there's a whole movement out there because it slows drivers down. It makes driving more miserable because they don't want you using your car. Understand, this is everything we're talking about today is really under this umbrella of the war on cars. There is a huge movement, mostly on the left, because they think that if you get in your car and you drive somewhere, you're destroying the planet, and therefore you shouldn't do that. And you're a bad person if you live in suburbia, and you have a car and a garage and a driveway. They hate you, and they want everybody to live in this dense 15-minute city where you can walk and bike to, quote unquote, everything you need. But of course, it's impossible. You only get one choice of whatever thing, and that the government or somebody decides, which dry cleaners is going to be there, what dentist is going to be there. You can't have the choices that you have right now. You get in your car and drive somewhere 20-mile radius or whatever. So, so understand, this is all about curtailing your freedom. It's all about curtailing your movement. And let's be clear about this. The freedom of movement and the freedom that cars allow has built this country. It is one of the greatest drivers of freedom and prosperity that we have ever seen. It's one of the greatest inventions ever. And people want to take that away from us. And this is not hyperbole. This is their words, their statement. They want less vehicle miles traveled. They want less use of your personal automobile. And that's really the umbrella of everything that we do, that we're fighting for every day.
Right.
So we're going to get ready to open up Q&A with you here in a moment, Jay.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Those that are watching the live stream, town hall, you get to engage with people all over the country. So here's another question for you, Jay. Your work often emphasizes evidence-based policy, and the NMA website highlights a 15% reduction in unwarranted tickets in cities adopting your recommended reforms. Can you walk us through one of those most compelling pieces of evidence you've encountered recently that reinforces this approach, and how do you plan to use it to further this cause?
Well, I can give you a couple of examples. First of all, going back to red light cameras again. So I was instrumental in getting the state of California to change their protocols to set the yellow light time based on the actual speed of traffic on the roadway, not the imaginary number on the sign. Okay, we talked about the difference between the number they put on the sign and the actual speed of the traffic. So now the state of California has to set the yellow light times based, especially at red light camera locations, but at every location for safety, on the actual speed of traffic. When they did that, the drop in tickets at these red light camera locations were somewhere depending on how far off it was to start with, was between 50 and 90% reduction in tickets. So when you do the engineering properly, it is possible to get those numbers down to just what we call the outliers, the people that are really the few dangerous drivers, the people that everybody remembers and thinks that's everybody out there. But it's just a few people out there. Just think about this for a second. I like to use this as a thought process, is that drive somewhere, okay, 20 minutes or whatever from wherever your location is, and think about all the people that you're passing every day on the highway, on the local road. Nobody's doing anything wrong. Most people are going about their business. They're just like you. They're just getting from point A to point B. And just marvel at the fact that you're driving on the highway at 65, 70 miles an hour, some states even faster than that. And nobody's crashing into anybody. All these cars are getting where they want to go safely. It's the few outliers that everybody thinks about and remembers. And because as human beings, we remember the things that are different. We don't remember the things that are the same. So we think that one crazy person that was going way faster than everybody else and cutting in and out of traffic, we think that represents all the other drivers out there, but it doesn't. Just take a moment and just notice all the other drivers around you that are just like you, that are not doing anything wrong and just trying to get from point A to point B and do their business. Those are the people that we fight for every day.
Well, looking ahead, the NMA is gearing up for the summer of 2025 with several local chapter events. What's one initiative or goal you're most excited about, and how can individuals get involved to support the NMA's mission during this critical period?
Well, I think the thing that we're most excited right now about is, in certain states, like if anybody's listening from the state of California, if anybody's still there, I fled. So, but if you're still there, there are some bills that we are fighting that are really, really bad. So go to our website, www.motorists.org, and what'll pop up immediately is a take action little box, and click on that, or there's also something at the top of the page that says action, take action. And click on that and go to our California page, and you can take action against these two really, really bad bills. One of them would reform red light camera tickets, so you would actually have no right to go to a trial. It would make the owner of the vehicle responsible and make your ticket what they call prima facie evidence, meaning you have to prove you're innocent, not the state. So it's a really bad bill. The other bill is a bill that would make school zones 20 miles an hour, 24/7, regardless of whether school is in session. So anytime, anywhere near a school, which is basically overlapping certain cities like Los Angeles or whatever, it would be 20 miles an hour overlapping in a whole major parts of the city, because the people that are pushing these things want 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, and so they want to get around the rules for setting reasonable speed limits. So that's another bill that we're fighting. But I think the thing we're most excited about is what's happening in DC right now. And with the new administration and with Sean Duffy in charge of the Department of Transportation, we're seeing a lot of changes from the really crazy woke transportation policies that were promulgated under the previous Director of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, and under the Biden administration. And we're seeing a pullback on a lot of these programs and a lot of these things, like taking away car lanes, they call that road diets, something called complete streets, which is very similar in nature, which is this idea that we have to build the roadway equitably for everybody on the roadway. So bicyclists should get the same amount of space as cars, and pedestrians, not just the sidewalks, but they should have an equitable use of the roadway and all this kind of stuff. And by the way, every place that this has been implemented, collisions and fatalities for what they call vulnerable road users like pedestrians and bicyclists has gone up, not down. And so it's a very dangerous policy, but we call it socialism for roadways, which is basically that it has to be equitable. So I was having a conversation with previous folks at DOT under the previous administration, and they were touting this, how wonderful it is. We're now building roads equitably for everybody. And I said, shouldn't you be building roads for the 98% of the people that are using them, which is people in cars and trucks and trying to get around and get where they have to go, and also, commerce and delivering goods. I mean, that's what roadways are for, not for, the bicyclist that wants to feel good about themselves because they're not using a car. There's a difference between what we call people who are are car less, which are people who can't afford cars and are poor and need help getting a car, and you can pull them out of poverty by getting them a car. And then there's what we call the car free people. These are, we kind of call these the bike kooks, and they see themselves as the identity that they're saving the planet by riding their bicycle. And so those are the people that are pushing a lot of these policies in a lot of these cities, and that's who they want to build roadways for. And so, that's one of the things we're pushing back against. And we're in conversations with the folks in DC. We're getting a lot of traction there, and I think, and we're starting to see it, and we're starting to see specific policies, and we're hoping that we can go further with that and claw back a lot of the stuff that happened under the previous administration. And I want to be clear, this was not just the previous administration. This has been going on for decades.
Wow.
So we got a lot of questions lined up already for you, starting all the way from Hawaii. We're going to be like pinball. We're going to go to Ohio, then we're going to go to Minnesota, then we're going to go to Florida. So let's start with Hawaii. Susan, go ahead with your question. Thank you so much.
Hi, Jay. I'm sorry I came in a little under the wire, so I missed your introduction. We just got back from a hearing. So if I'm being redundant, my question, excuse me for that. But I just wondered, with the repeal of the Chevron rule that took place last fall, have you been able to benefit from that? I mean, that was supposed to, kind of disempower the three letter agencies, DOT, DMV, is, included, from being able to enforce a lot of their policies onto motorists. And what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, and we're definitely, I think, seeing this at the EPA level, especially with a lot of the EV mandates and a lot of the clean cars and green movement stuff. I think it's going to be very, very helpful there. But even with regards to things like, and this is, we talked a little bit about speed limits. I don't know if you heard that part of the conversation earlier, but we were talking about how speed limits should be set reasonably based on the way the roadway is built. And DOT under the previous administration has made some changes to the national rules having to do with that, and they've kind of loosened up the rules and made them, more arbitrary. And we're hoping that we can claw some of that back. So yes, I think that this would, this is going to be very helpful. And just if you're somebody who cares about the rule of law, and you're somebody who cares about that laws should be written by our legislators and not faceless, nameless bureaucrats in some agency somewhere, the repeal of the Chevron doctrine was a huge boon for freedom in America.
Perfect. Our next question now is going to go to a colder climate, but not right now. Rob, Ohio, go ahead.
It's cold here. Hi, Jay. You were talking about the privacy that once you get in the car. Recently, I've had to purchase the Easy Pass, which pays the tolls automatically.
Right.
Is there any way to fight those? Because, they can basically track you everywhere you go. And I was wondering have you ever heard of where they've been placing sensors for the Easy Pass on side roads as well? Maybe not to charge you for the toll that's incurred, but for just to track people.
Yeah, I hear your question. I'm gonna tell you a couple of scary things just about this in general, but I was not aware of that particular issue. Glad you brought it to my attention. We'll look into that and see if anybody knows about this. And certainly, if you have any information on it and you want to send it to us, you can certainly go to our website and do the contact and say, hey, here's a message for Jay Beeber, and send me the information directly. But I don't know if people realize this, that there are things called Bluetooth readers that anybody, whether it's the government or a private individual, can set up at the side of the road. And if your Bluetooth is on and connected to your car or just on in general, it sends out a message, okay? And it can track, you can, hey, we saw this Bluetooth come by here 3 times today, or it comes by here every day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. You blanket a city by that, you can know where everybody's going. And there's no rules against that. You can buy these things on the internet right now.
Wow. That's a really
Well, thanks for making me more paranoid.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was made more. I was at something called Freedom Fest last summer, and one of the panelists on there was telling us about it. I had not known about this. It's similar to, like a lot of the other surveillance stuff, but it's a Bluetooth thing. So, if you don't have to have your Bluetooth on when you're driving your car, turn it off.
All right. Thank you much.
Yeah, good question, Bob.
That was a good question. Now we're going to we're going to add Amber and Kim from Minnesota. Go ahead with your question, guys. Thank you.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for coming on
Hi.
tonight. I just have one little question here. What is the common traffic rule you believe hurts drivers more than it helps, and how would you change it?
Oh, wow. There's so many. I think I'm just going to go back to speed limits, which is the thing that I think affects everybody every single day. You ride down a road and you drive the nature of that roadway, and if that speed limit doesn't match it, it's actually more dangerous, and it puts you at risk for police enforcement. It puts you at risk for just financially for tickets if you get a ticket from that. Sometimes a police interaction doesn't go well regardless of who you are, and so you want to minimize that interaction with the government if you can. And unfortunately, speed limits that are set unreasonably really put you in jeopardy in a lot of ways. It also makes the roadway more dangerous because it creates something called speed variation. And speed variation is a little bit what we were talking about before, where people have to change lanes to get around you, or they're frustrated. It creates road rage. It's the safest speed is everybody going about the same speed that's reasonable for that roadway, not forcing some people to go slower because they see a sign and they hit their brakes and slow down because they're afraid of getting a ticket and the other person didn't see the sign. And so they're just traveling holistically down the roadway. So I think the thing that affects most people every day, and I don't think they think about it that much, is speed limits. And I think that's, kind of where our thing is. Of course, there's a lot of other threats to our freedom out there, but I think and it's been going on since cars were invented. So it's nothing new.
Well, thank you. You answered the question perfectly. Thank you.
Thanks.
Perfect. Good question there from Minnesota. Now we're going to go to a warmer state, Florida. Go ahead, Rosemary, with your question, and I'm going to cross my fingers.
It is really valuable. Now, with regard to 15-minute cities, I know that in the future they want to have more and more 15-minute cities, but right now they are bike lanes in many areas. The opportunity for
Rosemary, we lost Rosemary. Becky, Texas, go ahead with your question. We'll get Rosemary's question in a second. Go ahead, Becky.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Jay.
Hi.
I'm old enough to remember some highways in Texas with speed limit signs that said unlimited speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not in favor of speed limits. And I was wondering how you feel about, I would agree to cautionary speed limit signs on curves.
Right.
For safety reasons, of course. And possibly suggested speed limit signs versus regulatory speed limit signs. And I was wondering, does your association deal with that in any way?
Well, I think it's, we don't necessarily advocate for no speed limits. Certainly on highways, maybe that's, more appropriate. The purpose of a speed, I think this is really sort of an interesting question. The purpose of a speed limit is really to kind of let you know what the reasonable speed is. So when you're going down that roadway, you're not going to do something that's way outside of what most other people are doing. It's really, sort of, what do they call this?
That's why it should be suggested. I think.
I'm trying to think of the word, but it's more of a tech term. But anyway, where you're just basically throwing a bunch of people on a roadway and seeing what they're doing on that roadway and what the vast majority of people are doing. You set your speed limit about that, and then when people are like way over that, that tells the police where they should start enforcement. Look, I also remember, excuse me, I also remember that there was in Montana, there was no speed limit. I moved from New Jersey to California in the 90s, and I moved in my little red Celica, and I'd not driven at my own choice of speed. So I'm like, okay, let me see if I can get this car up to 100 miles an hour. And it was a little 94 Celica, so it was shaking, but it was interesting to do, and it was perfectly legal to do so. And I think here's the thing: we have to trust the majority of folks who are adults to make reasonable decisions. That's what our laws are predicated on. That most people are reasonable, law-abiding citizens who don't intend to hurt anybody and don't intend to do anything wrong, and therefore the laws should reflect the behavior of the vast majority of people, and that's really what speed limits are supposed to do, and then indicate when you're doing something way different than what the vast majority of people deem appropriate.
Well, along that line, is there any reasonable solution for people that do not use their turn signals? Because that seems very important to me, to signal, or communicate to the other drivers on the road what they're fixing to do.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I know some lazy people that don't do it.
Look,
even police don't do it.
Right. Well, I guess they're above the law, but yeah, I mean, most states have laws about using your directional signal, and it's interesting. There was a case a couple of years ago where a police officer pulled somebody over. They were pulling into their driveway and they didn't use their directional signal. The police officer pulled them over, and the court determined and said, in that situation, there was nobody around except the police officer to give the ticket. The person wasn't really doing anything dangerous, and that's really, I think, all the way that our laws should be predicated on is ticketing and going after the people who are actually doing something dangerous. Yes, you're in traffic. You should indicate what you intend to do so other people can adjust appropriately and not be surprised by your movements. That's not only courteous, it should be, the legal way to drive. And people who, cut you off and don't use your directional signal, those people do deserve a ticket. But I think all of our laws should be predicated on what's reasonable and really looking at, did somebody put somebody in danger or did they not? And that's really where we should draw the line in terms of enforcement.
It should be all about safety first. And really, if we're on the road, be courteous of others, right? Have that safety cushion so you don't rear end somebody. Rob Ohio, go ahead with your go back. Rosemary, we're going to give you another chance. Go ahead.
Well, since we're talking about safety, one of the things that always bugs me driving is the amount of signs. Signs everywhere. There's a sign,
right?
And it's like slippery when wet. Really, do they need to have all these signs on here? Could they reduce those? I believe it was over in England. They had a bunch of accidents on a little, out village. So they came up with a novel idea: take down all the signs. Where you literally had to drive defensively because, there was nothing telling you not to do it, and the traffic accidents actually went down. Have they ever done a study on a correlation between the amount of signage versus the amount of distraction?
Yeah, this is a really good point. It is something that we deal with periodically. It's interesting, about this thing in England, or I think it was England, where they did it, and a couple of other places in Europe, and that's actually perfectly fine for, say, a little small town center. That's where they did it, and it's cobblestone streets, and it was built for the horse and buggy, and so I think in those kinds of situations it's appropriate. There is too much signage, and there are also too many restrictive signs. I'll give you an example of this. Stop signs. You need stop signs on the side streets, not on the main streets. But oftentimes they'll put a four-way stop sign. And the reason they do it is not, here's the purpose of a stop sign, because it controls the right of way. And if you have a stop sign on a side street and you can see to pull out and know whether there's anybody on the main street, you don't need a stop sign on the main street. The only reason you need a stop sign on a main street at four ways is if you is if for some reason there's a sight problem and therefore you have to stop somebody so the other person has a reasonable chance of getting the right of way at some point. But a lot of times what they do is they use stop signs just to slow people down, so they have to stop a lot so they can't get up to speed. That's not the proper use of stop signs. It's actually bad for the environment for those people who care about that. And so that's one of the things that we're fighting against. There's just there are too many signs. Part of the rule of traffic engineering is getting what you need to do safely without too many restrictions. You want to go with the least restrictive signage. If you can do a yield sign as opposed to a stop sign, you're supposed to do a yield sign. But a lot of that philosophy has gone out the window with the new philosophy of let's slow everybody down, let's make driving more difficult, let's make it more miserable, let's make it more expensive so people don't do it as much. And so unfortunately, the reasonable application of engineering has morphed into how do we get a social result as opposed to a safety engineering result.
Mhm. I have a comment.
Mhm.
Well, we live in Florida, and this
Okay.
new exit that you get off on, it
Mhm.
takes you into a roundabout,
Right.
not a stoplight, not a, so it's kind of cool. So the traffic doesn't like back up. How do you feel about roundabouts? Do you think that they're
Yeah, so this is very timely. Our next issue of our magazine, our cover story is about roundabouts.
Oh wow, okay.
So good question. We have part of the benefit of being a member, $42 a year, is you get our quarterly magazine. You get awesome articles like roundabouts.
Cool.
But here, so some of our members love roundabouts. Some of them hate them. Okay, we don't have a particular policy on it other than they're not appropriate everywhere, and so here's the thing. I personally, where a roundabout is appropriate on a not a very highly traveled roadway with a lot of traffic. Certainly single lane roundabouts are easier to navigate than 2 or 3 lanes. And so roundabouts are not appropriate everywhere, but they can be better than stop signs because you're not making people stop for no reason, especially when there's nobody around. If there's nobody on the roundabout, you can just keep moving and you don't need to stop. There's also less enforcement, so that's good. Unfortunately, I mean, now what they do is, in general, instead of a stop sign or a traffic signal, which oftentimes has a higher incidence of collisions because you get that sort of the T-bone kind of thing where you get oftentimes a side swipe, which is usually not as bad of an accident, but you may be trading off more of those less danger. So people have to get used to driving roundabouts. When you're not used to them, it can be confusing for some people. But personally, I like them if they're not in a situation where there's too much traffic volume and don't back up traffic too much.
Yeah. Well, we had one in our neighborhood, and they actually put a stop sign at it.
It's not how you use those roundabouts.
They put a stop sign at the roundabout, and I know someone that took the stop sign down. Okay, Rosemarie, we're going to give you a second chance. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my phone just started to talk. That is that they are building more and more bicycle lanes. Now, with regard to that, they want to get more and more cars off the road. This has been a plan that was devised many years ago. I don't know if you're familiar with the 2030 plan, which was originally a plan devised in 1993, and it was to get the road.
Okay, we try Rosemarie every week.
Well, I have a sense of what she's asking, so let's try to give an answer. We can. I'm sorry that the connection was so choppy, but I think what she's talking about is it was originally called Agenda 2021, and now they've of course pushed it out to 30 or whatever it is. And yes, this is sort of a new world order kind of thing where the folks around the world want to decide how everybody should live. And it does have a lot to do with the environment and a lot to do with like net zero, which is, we want to have, no carbon emissions. So how do you do that? You have to restrict everybody's mobility and have to restrict. I like the little sheep things. Thanks. So you have to have a lot of command and control over people's lives. That's not what we're about in America. At least I hope not, and certainly not under this administration. But there certainly are people that want to impose that kind of thing here. So whether it's more bike lanes, which is you have to oftentimes take away a car lane to put in a bike lane, and if you don't do that, you're putting bikes on high-speed roadways where they don't belong, and making it more dangerous for bicyclists. And think about also you're on a bicycle and you're put in, let's say, on a roadway with a lot of traffic. Now you're breathing in all those fumes, so that's not good for you from a health standpoint. And so
I know someone that died from that, actually.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I know someone that died from smog in traffic.
Yeah. So there you go. And so if you're in a bicycle, you're breathing that stuff and you're right next to the cars. So you don't really want these policies, but the folks that are the bicycle advocates, they're only doing this because, first of all, they identify it like this. This is a lot of identity politics with these folks, and they see themselves as the victims because as you're a white male, you don't have a lot of victim status in the leftist ideologies. You have to find one. So being a bicyclist, we're in danger, and we're a preyed upon species. So that's part of it. And they so they're pushing a lot of this stuff. They're pushing the 15-minute stuff, and this is why we exist. This is why the National Motorists Association exists. It's why other organizations exist. It's why this podcast exists, is to let people know about this and to push back against it. We're in the fight every day trying to push back against this stuff. And I have to say that really appreciate the ability to come on here and have this conversation, because this is not the kind of thing, especially with transportation policy, that I think people think about every day. There's all these little annoyances. We call them death by 1,000 cuts. And, maybe there's a ticket camera somewhere, or maybe they put up a sign that says no right turn on red where it doesn't belong, or they put up an extra stop sign, or they lowered a speed limit, where they took away a car lane. All these little annoyances that you get throughout your day. I don't think most people think about it. This is part of a really large movement to restrict your freedom of travel. I'll tell a quick story. When I was, right after I graduated college, I went to what was then the Soviet Union. And I was shocked to learn that you had to get permission to, if you could even own a car, if you had one or you could get one, you had to get permission to go from one part of the Soviet Union, part of the country, to another part. And, that's not how I grew up. We grew up traveling the country as a kid. My dad was a school teacher. We visited almost every state in the nation. And, you didn't need your papers to go do that. And I think what we're seeing in a somewhat similar, but obviously different way, we're seeing a real big movement to restrict our ability to get in our cars and go places. The result is the same, and that is it curtails our freedom, it curtails our economic prosperity, it curtails our ability to have trade and be part of the larger community. I mean, just think about the fact that all of our freedoms that we enjoy, whether they're laid out in the Constitution or not, okay? If you want to enjoy almost any of your freedoms, you have to have the ability to go places and interact with people. And if you can't do that, if that's restricted, that's restricting your God-given rights that we have as human beings, not ones that the government has decided we're allowed to have, but the ones that we are born with. And if we allow the government to curtail our freedom of movement in the way that we want to move, then we are giving up all of our other rights as well. Why this is, and that's why this
That's so
issue,
true.
this
That
is,
is so true.
so important. And it's funny because I think about, hey, we're fighting red light cameras, or we're fighting unfair speed limits, but that's not really what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our personal freedoms overall and our God-given rights. And that's, and that's what this movement is about. We just work on it for our little corner of the universe here.
That's
Jay,
awesome.
Jay, we have just maybe 5 more questions, and then we'll give you your time back. Go ahead, Val.
I'll go all day.
Well, I just had a question because, in our area, these roads they're changing the way we go through intersections, right? So like have you heard of like the X thing?
That's for going on ramps.
Oh, you're talking, you're talking about maybe a diamond interchange?
Yeah,
Yes,
diamond
that.
interchange. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a newer form. I mean, we have a couple here in Arizona. In fact, they're putting in another one not too far from me. Once you get used to them, I think they're a decent a decent option for having people. What they're trying to do with these things is they're trying to have less conflict points, so left turns and that kind of stuff.
Head-on collisions.
Moving straight through. Yeah, you're moving straight through, and then you're turning left with not across traffic, but a left-hand turn, or you're moving right through, and then you make a right turn to get onto the highway or whatever. So yeah, these are called diamond interchanges, and I think they're perfectly good. I don't see any problem with them.
Yeah, I just thought I'd
Good
figure
question.
what you thought about them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Texas. Becky in the Lone Star State. Go ahead, Becky.
Yes, Jay. Some drivers have more than one vehicle.
Right.
And I was wondering, for different reasons and purposes, I was wondering, does your association advocate for insuring the driver instead of the vehicle by any chance?
We haven't thought about that, and we don't get too much into insurance issues, although, it really does make sense that you should have insurance on the person as opposed to the car, unless you're talking about collision, and that's a different thing. But if you're talking about liability, then it should follow the person. That's actually a really good point. Never really thought about that.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. Now we're going to get Pastor Wendy to come up here from South Carolina, but she's visiting Kansas or Kentucky?
Kansas.
Go
I'm
ahead.
in Kansas, but I'm actually I live in South Carolina, and so they just passed a law called hands-free drive, hands-off driving. And so what they're doing is, they're going to you're going to be ticketed if you're holding a cell phone in your hand.
Right.
I kind of get the premise because, quite honestly, I've driven down the interstate heading into Charleston, and I've seen people texting doing 70 miles an hour on the interstate.
Right.
Really
Yeah,
stupid
I have
stuff.
too.
But I noticed on your website, you actually talk about distracted, and you said you believe can be best addressed through efforts to educate the public to its danger. So I just wondered what you thought about. I mean, I guess it's a slippery slope if you start going down that road, but I wondered what your thoughts were on that, if that was something.
Yeah, here's the thing about that, and it's again, I think this is not one of those cut and dried issues. There's some that are pretty obvious what the answer is. This is one of those things where, yes, you don't want people doing something dangerous behind the wheel, like trying to text while you're driving,
Right.
70 miles an hour down the roadway. However, once you pass these laws, it's just a little bit too easy sometimes to take advantage of folks. So I'll just give you an example of this, which is that, so where I used to live in LA, what they were doing is they put the police out there on bicycles, okay? And at traffic lights, they were riding in between the cars at the traffic light to see if anybody was looking at or touching their phone while they were sitting at the traffic light. Now, you're not putting anybody in danger while you're doing that. So this is where we go back to the traffic rules should be based, especially the enforcement part of it. It's sometimes hard to write a traffic law that says, well, it's going to be legal here, but not here. And, sometimes it's really hard to parse that out in the law itself. But when you get to the point of the enforcement, now you're just being petty, right? Like
Right.
I get it that you're like, okay, well, maybe somebody's looking down at their phone and the light turns green, so they don't start up immediately when the light turns green. So maybe somebody has to tap their horn at them or remind them to look up or whatever. But if your car is not moving, then like that falls into the no harm, no foul category for me, right? So this is a really good point, which is again, it goes back to, should somebody be ticketed? Should somebody be penalized if they didn't put anybody in danger? And that's kind of where we like to look at it. And again, you can't always write a law that's that specific that breaks it all out into in this situation or that situation or whatever. There are states that do that. They do have it a little bit more specific rather than saying, well, you can't ever touch your phone. They try to do it in California. We helped write the law that said, because we said, look, if you're going to say you can never touch your phone, well, what happens when a text comes in or the phone rings and you have to clear the screen so you can go back to your navigation? Like, so we try to write the law with a little bit of grace in there to be able to allow people to do something reasonable that doesn't put somebody in danger. But we do encourage people to pay attention to the road when you're out there. You are in a very large machine going at high speeds oftentimes, and you can hurt other people. So just be a reasonable, decent human being and try not to put other people in danger.
It's really a common sense approach, really, with that. And I don't know how specific. I only know that they, like if you're holding your phone, and they think you're holding your phone, like right. they can ticket you or pull you.
As far as I'm concerned, this is just another excuse for interaction with the police. And one of the things that I think we probably all realize but people don't think about is that the vast majority of people, their only interaction with the government is through traffic enforcement. And if we have overbearing traffic enforcement, and let me say this, oftentimes the rank and file guys are great guys, and they're often put into these positions by their superiors or by the elected officials that say, we want you to go out and do this unreasonable thing. And they don't like it so much. And in fact, there's a bill right now. What state is it in? Ohio. It's in Ohio to ensure that there aren't ticket quotas. And so, and that was put forth by the police themselves asking for this, right? The rank and file guys, the police association, the ones that the union that represents them, they don't like this stuff so much. And so, we want the laws to be reasonable, but the more interaction you have with the government in unreasonable ways, and police enforcement and traffic enforcement oftentimes is unreasonable. And that's not good because it breaks down society. We lose faith in our institutions. We need our institutions. We need the police. We need people to respect the police. We need people to respect the rule of law. But when the rules become ridiculous, then we lose respect for them. And that's not good. It's not good for the police, and it's not good for society. And it's not good, we lose trust in government, we lose trust in the courts, we lose trust in the police. These are all things that we need to have a good functioning society. And that's why the rules of the road and the enforcement of those rules needs to be reasonable, not punitive.
Very good question, Pastor Wendy. Thank you for the answer, Jay. Rosemarie, third chance, last chance. Let's see.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I'd like to ask Jay if he wouldn't mind writing a page for our newsletter. We have a very, very nice newsletter that goes out each month, and I would really enjoy having a page from him regarding freedom of movement and some of the important factors that he discussed with us tonight, if he wouldn't mind doing that. And he will, of course, have credit for that. So please, if you would like to do that, I very much appreciate it for our newsletter. And I'm sure many people would appreciate reading it. In addition, I wanted to bring up the fact.
Shut up. Okay.
Well,
okay, I got the newsletter thing.
She always runs in these things. But I will ask you this, Jay.
Yeah.
How did you like your experience on town hall tonight?
It's been awesome. I love having these kinds of conversations. I do want to respond to Rosemary if I could.
Yeah.
Rosemary, please contact me. I did hear your request for something for your newsletter. We're more than happy to do that. Just send an email. I'll just give you my personal email. Anybody listening to this can have it. It's not a secret. It's just my first name, JAY @motorists.org. That's our website, motorists.org. Motorists is plural, ORG, and it's J at. Just send me an email, okay? And if you guys are in touch with Rosemary, you can also send that to her and make sure she's able to get in touch with me. And since she got cut off so much, I'm more than happy to have that conversation through email or other means, since I know that she wanted to know about some other things. So more than happy.
Perfect. And can we get you to come back, Jay? That's
Oh,
really
sure.
that was really because I am worried about surveillance. I'm worried about America turning into a police state overnight. I see what other countries are doing, like China, and this data and the cameras, they're being able to put them, on hats and glasses and ties, and you're not going to be able to walk anywhere anymore without any cameras or other
Yeah.
stuff going
We
on.
can't, because
So
they're everywhere.
privacy is a huge concern to me. I'm the type of person like, look, I want to live free. I want to be able to drive on the road without these man-made laws, right? Because I'm kind of with you on this. Some of the laws are crazy. I drove in Germany where there was no speed limit. Now,
Yep.
some parts of that road, shadily, for an English guy that has no idea how to read German, they had some camera lights on the Autobahn, and I got these tickets in the mail. Well, I disputed it. It's like, look, I'm an American citizen. I was told you guys don't have, I could just drive as fast as I wanted to.
Right.
Anyway, talking about traffic laws and things like this is very important.
It is.
And it was a blessing to have you come on town hall tonight. So
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. If I could give just one more plug for the National Motorists Association,
Absolutely.
just to tell folks about, where to find us and how to join us in the fight. It's motorists.org. Membership is $42 a year. It's basically the price of a tank of gas. And it's the best money you'll ever spend in terms of your freedom of the road. We're the only organization in the nation that fights this fight every day. We are in our fundraising, spring fundraising campaign. Any donation over $100 gets matched. We have some folks that have generously agreed to match any donation over $100. And so, but join the organization. $42 a year. We have a ticket justice program. You can find that on our YouTube channel. Just look for Motorists. I think it's @Motorists on YouTube. And it'll explain how we can help you fight an unfair speeding ticket, because we talk a lot about speeding tickets. And the goal of that is to get people to fight back against an unfair system. And we help. So
I got a text from a friend that's connected through Starlink that wanted me to let you know that a California member, Larry, wanted to ask you something.
Okay, here's Larry.
He doesn't know how to raise his hand in the Zoom, so people had to text me a message that he had his hand up, literally. So
I feel like it's in the San Francisco area, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
No, I know how, actually. I've hit that button multiple times, but I thought you were ignoring me. I thought you were ignoring California.
No.
Ask your question. Go ahead, sir.
Jay, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I got a question, and I don't know if it's within the NMA purview, but I know I'll ask it, and if it's not in your purview, just say so, and I won't take up any more time. I know that Canada is in the process of trying to pass the law that any vehicle older than the year 2000, may even be 2010, won't be allowed to be on the road any longer. And if Canada goes that direction, Newsom is going to push that direction in California. Is that under your watch or not?
We do have a presence in Canada. I've not heard about this law. I don't see how. Look, they want to ban all internal combustion engines. This would be one way of doing it. I haven't heard about this particular law. We'll have to check with some of our Canadian members and see if they know anything about it. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you've got you've got some crazy socialist ideas up there in Canada. So, but it's almost
California as well.
So, and then, California.
Yeah.
So, it's one of the reasons we fled to California. So it was a once great state. They ruined it. But I wouldn't put it past them. Although, Newsom is looking to run for president. So while he may harbor these ideas, I don't think he's going to push that, at least until he gets to run for president, because
But Jay,
I've met the man. He is not somebody who you would like to think is a trustworthy player.
He's a snake. He's a
He
snake.
looks pretty slimy.
We call him the lizard man. We expect him to pull the mask off at some point.
Yeah, there you go.
but Jay, is that under the NMA purview?
Anything that restricts your freedom to drive your personal automobile absolutely would be.
Because I find that about as unacceptable of the government telling me I have to go purchase an electric car, or as a senior who's retired, now I've got to go out and buy a new car, and that's not practical at all.
Exactly. Well, here, here's the thing. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there has been an attempt in California to expand the waiver for classic vehicles to not have to go through all of the inspections and all of the emissions things or whatever. Jay Leno was pushing this, so we're calling it Leno's Law. And it ran into problems. I mean, it was like, the cars are only used to go to car shows and stuff like that. And how much emissions could they possibly be spewing out every day? And really, you got to screw over the people that have classic cars and basically keep them in their garages and shine them up. And like they bring them out like once or twice a year and go into a parade and go to a car show. But, it was like, oh my God, we can't have cars not be smog inspected and stuff like. Come on, these cars are probably running better than your car is.
It's actually the non-classic. I've got a 1998 vehicle that I take pride in the fact that I babied it and maintained it. I drive it across the country tomorrow. So it's not a classic for car shows, but maybe we're just being maybe I'm being premature and worrying about it, but that's going to be an issue if they push it.
It's good to know about it early so you can push back against it early. That's part of what we do, is let people know what's coming down the highway, as they say. That's why I mentioned on earlier that there's this movement to take away your right to turn right on red. I think most people don't know this, but in many cities, DC was one of them, and they backed off on it. And there's Atlanta was trying to push it, and of course a lot of the California cities. And they want to take away any freedom of movement using your personal automobile. And if they can make your driving as difficult, as expensive, as miserable, as slow as possible, they're going to do it, because you're a bad person if you get in your car and drive somewhere.
Thank you, Jake.
Very good question, Larry. And honest to goodness, on the surface, we didn't see your hand up, but I'm glad one of our members let us know, Larry. So
me too. Thanks.
Glad we want you to engage with the guest speaker. So thank you so much, Jay. You have a wonderful night. We're going to transition to the intel round. Rosemarie, go ahead and try to ask a question.
Okay, I'm on 95 here. It's a 70 mile speed limit, but then you go into areas where all of a sudden they lower it to 55 miles an hour, and that's when giving tickets. This is, I think, very unfair and also dangerous, especially in rainy weather.
So she was referencing I-95. I-95 goes in some areas 75 miles an hour, and then they'll do speed traps at 55 and then go back to 75.
Yeah, it's to generate revenue. I mean, they'll make some safety argument about it, but the roadway hasn't changed. And so there's no reason why you should have to slow down and go 55 miles an hour on a roadway that's built for, 65, 70, 75, 80 miles an hour. It's just a way to restrict you. I'm sure they have some stated rationale, but it's nonsense.
McGay, so go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I hope I'm not being redundant because I get knocked off for a while.
You might be redundant, yes. So
you did mention the roads were engineered for higher speeds, which they are, and they did change that. And you also mentioned turning right on red. which is really designed for the 10-minute cities or the smart cities to stop people from driving.
Right.
But I don't have a driver's license because I'm a traveler, and I'm not in commerce. And so that's kind of a different point, because driving or traveling is a right, not a privilege.
Right.
And we're allowed to go from point A to point B. And the other part of that is when they say driver's license, driver is an adjective modifying license. And just like speed is an adjective modifying limit. So technically, you're not even in contract when you get pulled over unless you've caused bodily harm or property damage. Okay, so that is a problem. So the officer will sign the ticket. And until you sign that ticket, you're not in contract with that ticket. And so if it goes to court and the judge finds you for driving without a license, let's say, the officer would have to pay the ticket. Because when you sign the ticket, you're a co-signer for the officer. So you could be found guilty, but the officer would still have to pay the fine.
Okay, well,
Have you ever looked into that?
I would say this, okay? It's an interesting theory. You have to find a court that's going to agree with you.
Well, that's
I
the way,
mean,
that's the way. I haven't had a driver's license for over 10 years. I have a traveler's license,
Okay.
and I don't have any problem in court.
Oh, good. Good for you. I'm glad that's working out. I think that I've seen a couple of cases where people have ended up in court, and that argument didn't go well for them. So
Yeah, because they don't know how to navigate the system.
that's probably
That's the key.
yeah.
Well,
Navigation.
perfect. Rosemarie, we're going to give you one last chance, though. We got to get to the intel round, so go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry, my phone, I've been having a lot of problems. I've been on the phone hours with my phone company. Anyway, Jay, when I asked you to do the article for our newsletter, I was cut off, and I would like to know if you would.
Yes, he agreed. He agreed. He agreed. He
Yeah,
agreed.
he gave you his personal
And
email
where can I
address.
get in touch with him?
Yeah, he gave.
We're gonna help make the connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you have a chat function
Okay,
or
thank you.
whatever. You can put it in. the
Yeah,
chat.
Jay, just reply to my chat here right now, and then we're gonna go to the intel round.
Let me see if I can do that. Hang on a second.
No problem.
Thank you.
I gotta find it. I gotta find it. Here it is.
That's okay. No, I'm writing it right now.
Okay, I got it. Hang on. Tap here to chat.
And then in the meantime, Larry, Pastor Wendy, Ron, Nevada, Rob, Ohio, Amber, and Kim from Minnesota, McGay. You guys are up here. I got some that are unmuted in the background that you don't see, like Shell and Becky, Texas is also unmuted. I've been trying to do Santa, Nevada, and others. So look, in the intel round tonight, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but here's some of on the top of the list. Trump and South African president. Okay, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about make America healthy again. What did RFK Jr. just do today? We're going to talk about things that got cut from food stamps. Okay, we're going to talk about other things like that just to get you guys' kind of bearing straight. We're going to do state to state first. Jay, any last minutes before we go to the intel round?
No, but thank you so much for having me on. It was great to connect with everybody on the podcast today. Thank you so much. Do reach out to me. I don't know whether this just went to the hosts or whether it.
No, it's perfect. Well, we'll distribute.
So you can share it with everybody. That's my personal email. Please feel free to contact me. And thank you so much for having the opportunity to share information with you today. I'm going to go have dinner. So.
Perfect. Have a good night, Jay. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So on that note, Larry, it seems like your governor is shifting to get ready for 2028 for the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Newsom is no friend of Red America First, just so you know. But what's going on in your state? All you that are up here in the panel, and then there's also Susan and Shell and others that aren't up up at front. Help us run this while Valerie and I run our dogs out to go potty and stuff like this. But let's go state to state. And then when we go to open intel, remember, we're going to talk about Trump and the South African president. And we have a lot of other topics as well. So let's start with California. Larry, go ahead and thank you for coming on tonight. What's going on in your state? Thank you.
If what you were interested in is what's the pulse in California about Governor Newsom possibly being a candidate for presidency, I think the same feeling and pulse with most Californians now is like it was with Bill Clinton back in Arkansas. The local people in California know what a fraud he is, but our concern is across the United States. If he's a good actor, and he is, then he may get a lot of support for a president candidacy. And that's one of our big concerns.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any panel members want to react to that before we go to the next person?
Yeah, it would be a terrible day if he ever got it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he is a Democrat, you know. They're going to follow the craziest one possible.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm glad Rob's here. Rob, help me moderate. You see the matrix order: Magaso, Ron, Wendy, Amber, and then there's some unmuted. Valerie and I'll be back. Thank you, guys. God bless.
Okay. Let's see. Who was from Hawaii that said they just got back from? Oh, okay, Magaso, you might as well start it off, and what's going on in Hawaii?
Well, I just got out of a court case regarding election interference, election integrity. A fellow named Ralph Christie went pro se with that. He's also on the Board of Elections in the state, and he's been denied a voice, even on the Voice of the State. They cut him out of meetings. They'll shut his microphone off, for example, and kick him out of meetings when he objects with the status quo. And so he brought it to district court today. And as I thought might happen, the two issues, the Judge Valenciano ruled for the state, saying that the elections, that Ralph was acting as in a capacity trying to speak for the entire election committee. And he didn't have that authority. So that technicality, he dismissed that in favor of the defendants. And then the other issue was his own personal standing, which he has to take up with the local elections board, because they were saying the election is already passed. We don't know that the clerk of the election representative in the county is going to repeat the same mistake. So we're going on speculation as opposed to what actually occurred. So the case was about the fraudulent handling of the ballot collections, the chain of custody, and compliance with Hawaii revised statutes. It was a contradiction between the county statements and the Office of Election Security Procedures. And in the county of Kauai, engaged in an election fraud by pretending to maintain a chain of custody while failing to properly account for ballots. So you can obviously relate this on a national basis as well. So this was a direct contradiction and a clear attempt to mislead the public. So the question was, how is it possible for more ballots to be counted than the number of ballot envelopes that were collected? And how is it possible that more envelopes were signature verified than were actually collected? And how can the county justify securing ballot transport containers if the ballot collection records are considered unreliable? So the county of Kauai was basically committing fraud against the people of Kauai. So now we have to move forward and take it directly to the Kauai elections head and see where we go from there. Also this morning, I was involved with the Hui Business Association meeting where we had our state representatives Ron Kochi, I believe he's a Senate representative, Nadine Nakamura, and Luke Evelyn in charge of housing. And they manipulated the meeting such that only 3 questions were able to be answered from the floor, which 2 of them were pontificating on the great job that the people, that the representatives of the government were doing. And only 1 question actually got asked, which is how they control and manipulate the voices of the people of Kauai and Hawaii. So that was another issue. Also, we have the Kauai County Convention. I mean, the state convention being held in Kauai this weekend. So tonight, in another hour or so, I'll be meeting with the 3 county chairs. And then we have our county elections state elections on Saturday and Sunday. And we have about 29, I believe, ballot amendments. Typically, the way it's set up, these amendments never get addressed or passed so that people can stay in power. Because we're probably, I'd say, maybe a guesstimate 50-50 rhinos versus patriots. So that's in my world on Kauai. Maybe Susie or someone has more.
So there are snakes in paradise, huh?
Oh, that's where they originated. When you're talking to the Polynesians, this is the Garden of Eden. So yeah, the snakes are here.
All righty. Well, thank you much. Becky in Texas. How's Texas doing?
I'm kind of disappointed. Just seems like we're full of rhinos too. The only thing I can really speak about tonight is the TWIA, the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. And so we have to have this windstorm insurance. And for the last 3 years, it's gone up $200 a year. And I'm now paying $2,000 for what they appraised my home at, I think like around $225,000. It's just getting ridiculous. So,
And
anyway.
that's like down in Florida with flood insurance. And up, up in Ohio, you have to buy flood insurance if you're considered in a floodplain. They take it as they look back 100 years, and if it's had 1 flood, you're in a floodplain.
Yeah, I'm in the optional zone for the flood insurance. So I went ahead and dropped mine because, in credit to the city, they have reduced flooding zone areas by putting in those larger pipes. And my block used to flood at both ends, and I haven't seen it flood for about 2 years. So I did drop that insurance, but only to find out that now I have to have this windstorm, and it's just BS.
Yeah, they're going to get you one way or the other, but not having it can be even worse.
Well,
if all of a sudden you do get hit with the wind, that 200 evaporates real fast.
Yeah, I found out about a year ago that if you have tree branches near your roof and the wind starts blowing those branches around and it harms your roof, that's not considered windstorm under the windstorm insurance. So
wow,
got to keep your tree branches trimmed, apparently, which is probably a good deal, but
we've cut every tree around our house down.
Okay, that's about all I have right now. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you much. Tom in Florida, do you have anything to say, Tom? All right, well, let's go with Ron then. I know Ron's got plenty of things to say.
Yeah, I'll give you the snapshot. I just got to go blank here for a bit so I can get to my pictures because I took pictures of all the different things that I could talk to you about. Okay, Nevada lawmakers hear a bill to toughen the penalty for deadly DUI crashes because the way it is set up now, you can kill somebody being under the influence, and you only have to do a few years in the minimum security, and then you're out. So they want to toughen and I think that's a good thing. Okay, Nevada Energy, which supplies most of Nevada, except I belong to a little co-op, but Nevada Energy faces investigation over $17 million overcharged its customers. Yeah, great, huh? Nevada governor vetoes bill to expand mail drop boxes before election day, which I think is good. Well, wait, he vetoes the bill to expand it, so that's good. Okay, Washoe County Republicans, they expelled the Sparks mayor. That Sparks is a city. They expelled the Sparks mayor, Ed Lawson, over Senator Rosen's support. So he was supporting a Democrat and he is a Republican, and they expelled him. And oh my goodness, anyhow. And Rosen was pushing for no tax on tips. And anyhow, I just think that's terrible,
So
But
even though they agreed, did they principally agree with the Democrat that was running, or
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And so they expelled him. Okay, let me move on.
okay?
Legislatures investigate 65 cent per gallon gas tax hike set to impact California, Arizona, and Nevada. 65 cent gas tax hike. Those sons of guns to do that to us, Okay.
No, they want you to go to electric. Do they
Nevada,
have any laws out there that they punish the electric car owners that since they're not paying gas taxes, or are they going after them in any way?
I haven't seen it yet, but right there, 65 cent hike. So even
Yeah.
if Trump brings down the gas price, it's still going to be high, and that hits everybody, low income, middle income. It doesn't apply to the rich because they don't care. It's hurting the people, and they don't care. Okay, let
Do
me
they
move on.
say what they're going to spend the 65 cents a gallon increase on?
I didn't read it. I'm just giving you a headline.
I'm thinking probably road repair where they can get kickbacks, for their running.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
Nevada bill to restrict semi-automatic gun sales to under 21 heads to the governor's desk. Yeah, so you can go die for your country, but you can't have a semi-automatic.
Well, you can't have a beer either.
Yeah. Nevada rolls out daytime headlights required signs ahead of new traffic laws. Yeah. So you got to keep your headlights on, which is a good
Well,
thing.
actually, that does pay off quite a bit. It enhances your your visibility. The same as they've had it for years for motorcycles that
Right.
with the
I
headlights
agree.
on there. Yeah.
And I ride all the time with my lights on just because. Okay, the governor Lombardo, one of 7 GOP governors, not signing a letter to Trump in praise of big beautiful bill. Small group of House Republicans save over 500,000 acres of public land from being sold off as part of the big beautiful bill. You remember I talked about a long time ago, I started talking about they're going to try and take away public land, and
Right.
that we have, because Nevada has some of the most public land ever, like 86%, which is great because I can go anywhere without seeing no trespassing signs. Love it. That's why it makes Nevada unique. And then they wanted to sell off 500,000 acres of public land, basically a lot of it down in Vegas. So they can get more people down in Vegas, which will require a lot more water, which they don't have. And then they're going to come after the water in northern Nevada, where I live. They tried it once before. But anyhow, they saved it. That is not going to be in the big beautiful bill, and I'm happy about that. And they're also going to try and stop with Utah doing it too. They're trying to sell off public land. And
Are they selling off any government-owned land?
well, the government-owned land is our land. You know, BLM.
Oh yeah, but like up in Utah, most of Utah is owned by the United States government. Is that what you mean by public land?
Yeah, that's public land. Yeah.
Well,
So anyhow, that's all I got from Nevada.
Okay, well, thank you much. Amber and Kim,
Hello.
what's happening in Minnesota?
A lot. Well, Minnesota Supreme Court has now decided that women can go topless now that their breasts are not considered lewd anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Minnesota's
Oh,
taking.
great. Now I'm not going up there anymore. Thank you.
I don't the former Minnesota Senator Justin Eckhorn, he's trying to delay, I guess, proceedings and stuff, I guess, is what it says here. And there's a couple other things. The Minnesota Stillwater prison's being closed down. The oldest one. That's being closed down now, I guess. I don't know what they're gonna do. There's like what, over 1,200 or something inmates, I think, in there.
Relocate them in Minnesota or Minneapolis, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know if there's that.
I mean, we already have a problem with the prisons being overpopulated. So I don't know where they plan on housing all of these inmates. So.
Oh, they'll just probably let them out early.
Minnesota, I don't know. They like keeping them pretty, more money for them. So, and
No.
I don't know what else is up here. Let's see.
Do they have like public prisons up there where it's, it's a privately owned prisons?
No.
Where they contracted out?
No. It's all
a lot of states have
state.
moved to that.
It's all through the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what else was there. Can you read that faster than I can?
That one.
Yeah, or whatever. The transgender vulnerability. Let's see, what does that say? Minnesota transgender inmate issues. It should obviously, they say it shouldn't be this complicated. So they are bucking on males going into female prisons.
Boxing a chicken hen house, huh? Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep. They have 3 biological males housed at Shakopee, the women's facility, which is causing a lot of concerns with the employees there, like the one of the ladies that does the GED classes. She's written letters and just doesn't feel safe going to work. So and they still allow them in there.
Well, a little bit of saltpeter would take care of that problem.
You would think so, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Minnesota's completely taken a different direction here. I can't wait to get Waltz out.
Worked in the Navy.
Very good, Larry.
I think that's about it for right now, I think.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pastor Wendy, do you have anything from Kansas or South Carolina?
Yeah, there's stuff going on. South Carolina. So we talked earlier. I mentioned when Jay was on there about the new law they just passed about the hands-off driving, as far as like which I guess like I said, I've seen some pretty wild stuff driving on those interstates, but they passed that law and the Supreme Court sided with the state about the 6-week abortion ban again. So there was that. Nancy Mace, I think she's planning a run for governor, and she's been all over. She really took on this whole men and women's bathrooms, the whole transgender thing here, and but she actually posted. She had in one of her meetings, one of the congressional meetings, she actually had she showed a naked photo of herself that was taken without her permission, because she's trying to bring attention to, right? So
Why was she naked if somebody else was there she didn't
well,
give permission
I don't
to?
know how it happened. I think it was done. I know it was done without her consent, but you know, things happen. Like you've been hearing, I've been hearing a lot about, you know, you go into these Airbnbs and they've got cameras set up and they can just check you out, you know, without
Just little
Yeah.
pinhole cameras. Let me
That's
scan
her
your
excuse,
feelings.
I would say.
She did. So I know that she's getting, although there's a lawsuit against, there's a lawsuit against her right now because she accused somebody of being a rapist, yada, yada, yada. Now he's taking her to court. But I know she's gearing up for the governorship run, I think. And she's taken Duke University to task for doing the all the pronoun things. Like, you know, they're just very, you know, they've been very DEI and very, very LGBTQ, you know, plus. And so she's kind of really been pretty vocal about a lot of that stuff. But other than that, you know, there's a lot going on in South Carolina where I'm living. We've got 40 families moving into the country per day because it's blowing up there. And so I'm guessing they're actually calling us Silicon Valley of the Southeast because so yeah.
You're kind of breaking up there, Wendy.
Oh, sorry. So anyway, but other than that, Kansas, I was just reading about where the GOP went at the governor for doing some kind of a veto dump. Apparently they sent a bunch of stuff and she just vetoed. So it's amazing this in this state when I'm out here. There's a lot of patriotism where right focus kind of centered where I am, like a lot. And they seem to be very conservative, but the public school system, from what I'm told here, is kind of in shambles. I mean, they've got LGBTQ flags in the classroom. A kindergarten teacher has on her coffee cup, no vagina, no uterus, no opinion, or something, no vagina, no opinion. So, you know, yeah, right? I mean, shake my head. I don't know what to say about that. But anyway, so there's been a little bit happening out here too. South Carolina there is a movement there where they're selling the hats that say "Dump Lindsey Graham." I don't know how far that will go. He's pretty solidified in that. It's a good old boy system, no joke there. So I'm not sure how far that'll go, but there is a movement. There is and it's not just South Carolina. I think it's going nationwide where there is a group where they're saying, listen, we have freedom of speech. They're actually taking on the school boards and starting petitions to get the Bible back into public school. And they need it because they've been indoctrinating these kids for a long time now. And it's really, that's where a lot of this begins and ends. So having said this, that's my last thing, but I would ask for prayer because I feel like the Lord is kind of guiding me in that direction to start getting involved with some of that. So, yeah, so in prayer because our school board, you know, our school boards, they're kind of a war zone anymore, especially if you're conservative. So, yeah, so just, I would appreciate that, but I think the kids are important and I think protecting them is important. And, yeah, so there you go. That's all I got.
All righty, thank you. Casey, you got your hand up?
I got a question for Pastor Wendy. I heard that Scott Jennings from CNN is going to run for Lindsey Graham's seat.
Pretty cool. I hadn't heard that, but I'll pay attention to that now. I kind of watch him, you know, standing his ground on the news channel there, where he kind of takes them on, and he's been very effective with a lot of that. So that I think would be, man, yeah, I think that might be a good thing. That would actually be pretty cool. I like him. What I've heard so far. So, wow. I'm gonna have to check that out now, McGay. So I'll get back to you.
Back.
Okay, let's see. Thank you very much, Wendy. Amy up in Alaska. Is that AK? That's Alaska, correct?
Yeah.
What about Amber? Amber's got anything? Or Kim?
Oh, we just, yeah.
Yeah, we already won.
Yeah, we rotated that around.
Oh, you guys already went. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going by the roses. They appear. There's
All
Amanda.
right.
There's
Well,
Susan, Hawaii.
go ahead, Susan, Hawaii, and then Shell, Texas. Go ahead. After Susan.
Hi, guys. Nice to see all your faces again. Let's see. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, good. Not sure. So let's see. I just got back from 3 weeks in 3 of the reddest West Coast states. And that was it was quite an experience. So I'll just try to skim over that just for points of interest, more or less, and then I'll end with the Josh Green getting reamed in a hearing, Senate committee hearing, which will be a happy ending. Anyway, driving past Portland, the chemtrails were absolutely off the charts. It was just, I mean, it was so in your face, they could have painted it right over your windshield. So to me, that looks like an operation to really wake people up because you couldn't ignore it. It was so brazen, so in your face, and just painting the sky, planes across the sky, painting the sky. And we were heading east, in Oregon past Portland. So we saw it all the way to the east. I mean, so they're just blanketing the state. It was just the most insane thing. I've seen chemtrails many times over the course of my life, but this was definitely a real extreme. So I thought that was really worth mentioning. Let's see, Washington, the governor is imposing another hefty tax on the, tax increase on the working class. So they're grinding their teeth about that, these woke states. California beaches are still washing up charcoal from the Palisades Malibu fires, and that was very sad to see in real life, the charcoal wash. It just
Oh, really?
brings back just reminiscent of Maui because I did fly over Maui on the way out towards the mainland, and it was just the sadness and the grief that just rises up from just flying over that area is just indescribable. It really is.
Yeah, it kind of confused me out at Maui. The fire burnt from inland to the sea, correct?
It was yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's definitely it was definitely a deliberate burn. I mean, they have all kinds of excuses, with the, not clearing the brush and the electric boxes, and there was a lot of things, but there was definitely this was definitely an assisted fire. It was, I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's books out on it now. It's and lawsuits lawsuits are rampant over that, and the grief of the families not being addressed, and people fighting over there to really keep this in the public eye so people don't forget what happened in Maui because it was the tragedy is still ongoing there.
Yeah,
So
I can well relate to that. We're still fighting to keep East Palestine in the news, and well, the newer government is helping us finally. Well, helping us keep it in the news by giving the FOIA requests that's been requested. So don't give up yet. It's been what 2-3 years for us.
wow, yeah, yes, I hear you, Rob. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, you can't give up. You got to just keep the fight going and just keep pushing it into the public eye. It's
Yeah.
just, it's an incredible thing. While I was in LA, there was a car bomb that went off over an in vitro clinic in Palm Springs. So that was a big thing. And of course, we've had 2 airline bomb threats coming to and from Hawaii.
Yep.
So, I'd say we got a little deep state kicking and screaming. There's definitely some, there's action, counterpoint action. It's just, yeah, it's really ramping up. You can see that. It's
Yeah.
the level of just the pushback and the reaction to that is really coming to an apex. And I
Well,
think
they've
we're going to
had
see it
what
only amplify.
4 or 5 years of mental illness, or close to 8 years of mental illness. Now they're just turning them loose.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine? Yeah. I mean, anyone that's going into the mental health care profession right now, that is the profession to go into because it's going to be so badly needed from yesterday into the future. Just the mental health is off the charts. You can see the strain in people. You can see the strain in their faces. You can see it, how they express themselves. There's so many signs just in everyday people of the mental strain. You know, you
Yeah.
just wonder how long before people are, I mean, people are snapping, you know,
Yeah.
it's, you know, you just want this to be over. You know, now Trump had made a wonderful post a while before I left, a couple weeks before I left, maybe longer, that the operation is over, the patient has lived, which tells me that if you're looking at it from behind the scenes, you know, from another timeline, that their operation as they have is finished, and now we're watching the movie play out and all the repercussions and the reciprocal, you know, events post operation.
Yeah, I
So
hear the arrests are going to start near the end of the year.
yeah, and I think they are already ongoing. You know, one of the scary things about being in LA too is that you know, the cab drivers, you've got a lot of immigrants that are still driving cabs. You know, how can you ask them if they're undocumented when you're in the car? You know, from Colombia to, I mean, seriously, it's scary. From Colombia to El Salvador, cab drivers still actively, you know, running in Uber and some of those cab companies. So, you know, there's a lot of concern there about, you know, people are
Yeah.
putting their lives in the hands of people that are unknown. You know what I'm saying? It's a huge
Well,
thing.
welcome to Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's there's a lot, you know, just I mean, yeah, just being on those West Coast, those blue states, it's amazing to see just the lag of, you know, of progress, the lag of it. Not, you know, it's really sad because, you know, it really shows you that the blue states are going to get spanked the hardest, you know, through the
Yep.
remainder of this operation in order to wake people up. It's, you know, it's like how much can people take before they just can't take anymore? It's
Well,
pretty interesting. So anyway, to wind this up, um, Governor Josh Green was in DC. I think it was yesterday. It was in DC in a hearing for on corruption of science and federal health agencies. And so, you know, he got pretty popular, you know, pretty properly by one of the senators there about, oh yeah, pass the buck to the mayor. You know, I'm not taking personal responsibility beyond, you know, what, you know, the COVID czar that he was. So it's nice to see him put in the hot seat. And anyway, I guess that's enough for now.
all right. Well, thank you very much. Okay, Shell, Texas.
Okay, so I have this report on the man who founded the Texas Renaissance Festival. It's actually a really big deal down here. It's like 500,000 people generally that attend this thing. They found him May 21st at 9 a.m. dead in his home at
Oh, wow.
87 years old. But the thing that just really has alarmed me or has brought up suspicion with a lot of people here in Texas is the timing of his death is exactly 2 week gap between a judge's order and Calhoun's death, or Callum's death has led to speculation through no direct causal link. The timing suggests a possible connection to stress or of a legal outcome, but this remains speculative, of course, without further investigation into the cause of his death. So I'm sorry.
Was he accused of something by the judge or?
The judge awarded, so he had like he was awarded by the judge to give over his assets, all of them incomplete, to the buyer that was going to buy out the Renaissance from him. And he lost the battle. It was like something like $60,000 in total. 60 million. I'm sorry. So I was way off. The 60 million deal in April of 2023. It was there was a closing date of August 8th. He didn't honor that date. So they awarded the people that were buying it, they awarded them basically 23 million. And then
Yeah,
ordered him
that would probably kill an 87-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
Yep. Other than that, there's just a lot of tech buzz right now going on in Austin, Texas, with the tech hub that I spoke of last Thursday. and like the Tesla compound and all that other stuff is making headway. That's a pretty big deal right now.
Okay.
Those are the only two things I've really had today for the state intel.
Now, what about the Epic City? Are they going to be able to put the squash on that?
I
That's
think
the
they've already
Muslim
started
city?
that. Yeah, I think they've already started the squashing of the Epic City.
Okay.
Yeah, it said Greg Abbott has already announced Epic City may not be constructed.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would.
I seen an interview of the religious leaders that are pushing this. And there was the one that talked the most, probably did the most damage to their cause. He was talking about, well, they're caught stealing, we'll just cut their hand off. Truly, Sharia law would be
Yeah.
enforced there. So,
Yeah,
all right, well,
I lived by that law for 7 years of my life when I was a young girl.
Wow.
I watched people get carted off for that kind of thing. Little boys, men, all kinds of stuff, families who were accused, especially women. Women a lot of times were accused and dragged off and beaten right in front of everybody, like cattle.
were you overseas at the time, or?
Yeah, I was in Saudi Arabia.
See, I didn't know that about you, Shell.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean,
So you can
they were so militant about that's what's so funny and ironic about the difference between being a migrant in America and being an immigrant from a foreign country, especially a Muslim one, because the first thing they do is they have sort of a program that they put all of the American or any sort of repat or any person or expat that comes into the country, they put them through a program where you have to go in, and I have all those booklets and pamphlets that you have to study and read. You have to take a proficiency exam. You have to learn how to speak Arabic. You have to learn how. You have to have certain proficiency level. Sorry, accomplished in that to their liking, and then you have to do a lottery for a trailer in a American compound trailer park, and that's how they start you off until you bid for an actual house in another very rich, it'd be Saudi oil sheik, or it would be other expats of richer, but you'd be basically, it's a lottery of your income status. And that's how you'd be placed on the base in Saudi.
Okay, well that's it. I mean, I find that interesting.
Was that military?
No, my dad was oil.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, did you have to pay the extra tax for not being a Christian?
Well, that's the thing. You'd never want to tell people that you were, you know what I mean, for your protection. I mean, you weren't even allowed to celebrate Christmas. For those 7 years, I never had a Christmas tree in my home. And also, I was forced to go to boarding school if I completed all of the grade levels that they were offering there. I would be forced to go to I have lots of friends whose parents didn't mind sending them to a boarding school overseas, and that's where they went. And so it was just a different life.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds like it.
Okay.
But you've seen it up front. Wow.
Yes.
Well, then you know the real threat then.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to have a discussion one of these days about everything that went on over there, because you have practical experience now, and it would really help the rest of us.
Yeah, I would love that whenever you guys want to do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
I have a question for Shell.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. When Governor Abbott was interviewed, he said they were stopping the expansion of that facility. But he didn't talk about closing or anything else with the facility. And Sharia law is in violation of our Constitution. So not that they can be deported if they're citizens, but they are actually committing violation of laws against the Constitution. Does he address that at all?
Not to my knowledge yet, no. I think he's doing a very delicate dance. A very, very delicate dance, obviously, because he'd have a whole bunch of people of Muslim descent, you know, an uprising. So, and they're very, very deeply rooted here.
Yeah, I think he's playing both sides of the fences, and I don't trust him in that regard regarding that city.
He's more of a politician than he wants to let on. He's not a true believer. He's just a politician.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Sandra, do you have anything to add to all this? Okay. Holly, Nevada. Nope. Soledad in Virginia and Maryland. Oh, nobody wants to talk.
All right.
Okay.
We could go.
Jimbo.
Jimmy, North Carolina, go.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening, Jim, let me just say you were absolutely right about the guy that took over Norfolk Southern. He's even worse. Thank you.
Rosemary, try your data. Go for it.
No.
Hey, McGaso.
Yes.
I just looked that up about Scott Jennings. He actually looks like he might be running for he might be trying to take Mitch McConnell's in Kentucky.
Mitch McConnell.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that would be good too.
That actually would be good.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Well,
yeah, hopefully somebody else will step up and take out Lindsay.
So Rob and Ron and everyone that's unmuted that's up here, let's go ahead and talk really quickly about South Africa and the South African president visit yesterday. I have a video I could pull up in a little while here, but I wanted everyone to talk about it. I yield.
Okay. President Trump totally impressed me. He is the GOAT. I mean, I've never seen a guy, when the visitors come to the office anymore, they must feel like they're going into the principal's office. You know, maybe you did something right, but more than likely, you're going to get the riot act read to you. I love it. Just call, truth to power, and he is speaking it. So I applaud him on that.
Wasn't that great? That was something to see.
Yeah, and the president denied any knowledge of it. Yeah. Yeah, that's like Comey not knowing what he was doing. Yeah, not believable at all.
No, the oblivious smile was a dead giveaway, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This is the part about this is showing the public the truth now of what's going on in other nations, that this is a world confrontation, good versus evil, so you can see what's happening around the world. And Trump will do that. That's what he promised to do.
Good
show. No more talking. Let's show.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
he's the man, isn't he? I mean, he brought him in there and showed that movie and basically said, "What's up with this?" Yeah.
Trump was right about everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the spin on the left has been, and I saw it like in several different news scripts, and what they came up with was that Trump ambushed him, and that was so that was their takeaway. Unbelievable.
Well, good. I'm glad he ambushed him.
Somebody needs to, because there's white people in South Africa that are getting, treated unfairly there.
Right.
They're getting killed. There's being genocide there. Yeah. So somebody needs to speak up.
Well,
Yep.
didn't they ambush the J6 people?
Right.
Didn't they ambush the mothers that were standing up for their children through
Right.
sexualization?
I just find it it is just so two-sided. I just find that it's just sickening. It to me, it's just like that they would even that's what they put out there.
Yeah,
You
they're
know?
crying victim now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, are you people serious? Like, I would love to see just, and I know there's a few out there, but seriously, I would love to just see these people taken to task sometimes over.
We have to remember that they are being programmed by the television. So these people are already angry with Trump. So they got to hear what do I need to be angry about him about now? Oh, he's
Right.
being aggressive to
Yep.
the president of South Africa. Really? Really? Do we ever peel the onion, people? Do you ever get outside of your programmed world? I yield.
Hey, did you see that Trump put that NBC reporter or was it ABC reporter in his place? He tried to
Not
change.
asking about the jet.
Yeah, he tried to change the whole subject,
Yeah.
and Trump saw right through him and just called him for what he did. He says, what are you doing? You trying to
That
change the whole subject? He
that
goes, you're a
report
lousy
called it.
reporter.
It was such a nothing burger. That reporter needed to be called out. When you're
Oh
dealing,
yeah, yeah.
good grief.
And he did
The
call him
lives
out.
of
And I was so
people.
glad he did.
Yeah.
That was NBC, and he called out
NBC.
the owner of NBC too.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that was great.
Well, in addition to South Africa doing the genocide against the white people, aren't most of those white people are the farmers that are growing the food for them?
Yeah.
So they're like actually biting off their nose.
Yeah, they are the
Yes.
farmers that own mega acreage,
Mhm.
from way back in the day when they settled that area. I mean, Michener did a great book about South Africa. Robert Michener, the author, and yeah, very interesting book. And they fought a lot of wars down there.
Well,
Yeah.
they did a lot of wrong too, but that does not excuse him. Mandela, he called, he's a little bit of a radical, but he tried to unite them. It's his wife who was more of the radical who wanted to divide them. But that just goes to show you what happens when they come in and divide the people. They should be aware that I forget what. It was China. Mao went in and killed off all the farmers and took the land and gave them to the collectives. And how many millions died from starvation in that?
Millions.
This is where South Africa is heading to now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nothing good's going to come out of it, but we need farmers.
Can you
And
imagine?
we need to get a few of the acreage that the Chinese have taken over and give it to the farmers instead.
I agree. They should be kicked out of our country, and they should not own land in our country. That is insanity that they are allowed to own land in our country. They are our enemies. Why let them in our country? Why let them own land next to the military bases?
Speaking of enemies, let's talk about the Supreme Court ruling in favor of the criminals. Let's talk about that.
We have some enemies right in the Supreme Court. That's just terrible, terrible.
If any of them get, caught doing something illegal and get thrown off, I have the perfect guy to go into the Supreme Court, and that'd be Ho. Did anybody else read the letter he wrote? And, he was very congealing to I don't know, congealing, but deference to the Supreme Court, but he called them out on all the wrong things that they did. Because there's another, Amy Barrett, they, forget which court it was, but he was in the court. They took 9 days and they sent it back to them. They had to make a ruling within 9 days, but they sent it back to the court and told them they needed to think about it. the TDA, they requested it within 42 minutes. And Hove totally pointed out everything they did wrong and called them on it. That's a guy that I would want. He did it strictly by the book, but yet not many people are talking about it.
Yeah.
Did anybody else read the letter?
No, but if we're going to restore the republic, the judiciary has to be on display right now, because they're bought and paid for. Even the Supreme Court, they're compromised. So this again,
exactly right,
is exposing people by name and face of the crimes they're committing, and any judge who commits treason against the Constitution can be removed.
Well, if you say treason, they can be hung too.
No.
Oh, yeah.
They can be removed by impeachment through the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's the only way.
Well, if they get charged with treason and found guilty, you don't have to
here's the
impeach them.
shadier part. It's 3/4 vote, not 50.
Yeah. So it's
After-
not going to happen. They can't even come together for to pass a bill.
I would challenge that. I'd say after 2026, we'll have that majority.
Yeah, you could say that, but
let's hope
I
so.
I feel like they developed a loophole to protect their asses every single way, in every single possible way. This is just a cover up. If you can't see it, then you're just blind to the matrix, and we're in it.
Yeah. We're navigating the matrix now. We're breaking the matrix. We're breaking the mold. This is God's war. And the Patriots are going to restore the republic.
Supreme Court's been a very big disappointment. Very big.
Two in particular.
Yeah.
And okay, I have to ask this. Did anybody watch the Kash Patel, Dan Bongino interview by Maria on Fox?
Please tell us the reports of nothing. Go for it.
They swear up and down that Epstein hung himself.
He committed suicide.
Yeah. Do you believe
that?
Nope, don't believe it.
Assassin that tried killing not then President Trump, but Trump, that they acted alone.
Yeah, don't believe it.
Nope.
Yeah, well, I listened to one guy, Doug Hagman. He was the investigator that Trump hired to go in and find out. And he is vehemently disagreeing with what Bongino and Kash both said. But the body language was wrong. I don't know if they're just blowing smoke on us.
Let's get him on the show, Rob. Text me the name. Let's get him on.
I'll do my best, but
I'll help you too.
He's out to make money himself. So, but if I could, I will send him an email and either have, he would be the best one, but I don't know how much he could talk about it right now.
Yeah, I think they're blowing smoke. I really do. I got that impression.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, if they're blowing smoke, then Trump definitely knows that they're blowing smoke.
Yeah, I don't buy it. It might fit the script for the moment, but I don't buy it.
Right.
That'd be my question is why? Why?
Yeah.
Why are they saying that right now?
And here we go. The perfect drum roll for Shell. Shell has some information on Dan Bongino. Please, those have an open mind to the idea. I might have to shut off my live stream. Hang on a second. Those that are watching live stream, visit redamericanfirst.com, sign up. We are going to stop the live feed tonight because we're going to talk about stuff that might put me in jail.
Hey, Shell.
Hey.
Do tell, Shell.
So before I give the dish, I just want to give the PG version for you to think about in the back of your head, okay? Because these are the questions I was asking myself to think critically, right?
Well,
When it
Shel,
comes,
before you start, can we
yeah,
hold off until Ashley gives the clear? That way
yeah,
we don't get any more strikes.
yeah, yeah. This first part though, the questions and stuff is PG. It's
Oh,
PG.
okay.
Yeah.
Let her do the vanilla version. I'm remoting in now.
Okay. When it comes to the government, you will always get a curtailed, sanitized version of the truth you seek. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel will put their family, career, and money above your desire to be given the truth at their expense. What are they getting in return from you? Nothing. So why would they risk everything just to expose something for someone who they have no allegiance to, that cannot protect them when things get dicey once they spill the beans to satisfy your curiosity? The only people who are upset at Dan and Kash are those who either do not follow social media that exposed them, or those who severely underestimate how deep the corruption is. Do you actually think people like Dan would get a show on Fox News because he told you everything there is to know about Hillary Clinton? Do you forget who brought you to the dance? It was the Anons. For those of you who were on 4chan and 8KUN, what do you know about the cabal today? It didn't come from Kash or Bongino. So why would you think they would be the ones to take them down? Dan Bongino was the same guy who told you there was no second shooter on July 13th.